don't y'all hate when y'all get the little message notification at the top of the screen? If you know if you touch it, you're gonna just leave it alone, let it be. Divine Rise, blessed be to your day. May it be everything you require to create everything that you desire in the aspects of the best investment into yourself. Remember, 3 things. Healing is destructive. You're deserving, but you're not entitled. And the level of honesty that you are tapping into, the level of honesty that's going to take you to heal, to become, to rise into your true self, is going to, let me do this real quick, turn that off. It's going to shatter, as I take out these headphones, it's going to shatter the entrapment complex. I was thinking about it while I was on my run, thinking about it with everything that's going on. I was thinking about it as I'm preparing for, as I talked about that fiscal year and everything that's coming into that space. You doing your internal work. You tapping into your internal work. You're starting to see that the faith without works is dead. You're starting to understand a lot of your aspects of yourself. And one thing that came up to me was thinking about the aspects of your self-worth, insecurities, jealousy, your insecurities, your abandonment, your guilt wounds. A lot of these wounds, these regrets, these aspects. These are the things that until I took the self-assessment, I was realizing that a lot of the things that I was doing, or a lot of the things based on reaction. Remember, I told you reaction is comfort. A lot of the things that I was doing that were based on reaction to what was being done. A lot of the things that I was seeing that were a reaction based on what was being done. Reacting to what other people were doing instead of understanding that as an assessment. Something as simple as, and I dropped the video, join me on TikTok, I dropped the video about the aspect, are you the solution? Which means when you're inside of your space, understanding that when you are making this transition, when you are making these steps, you are stepping out of your own ego traps. When we talk about ego traps, these are the aspects that make you feel protected. They give you that gut feeling. But if you have been consuming if you've been consuming things based on emotional reaction, that means your consumption is based on making you feel immediately good. That means it makes you feel immediately good. That means, okay, I feel good, I got it off, but it's not at the end of it, it's not making you better. Without that accountability, I had to understand that even though I was doing things that were making me feel good, they were making me feel good about myself, I was in that state. I had to realize that after a while, based on these distractions, they were really entrapments. Because I've talked about intuition before. Intuition is going to push you outside of your comfort zone. Greetings. Intuition is going to push you outside of your comfort zone if you're not used to being outside of your comfort zone. Entrapment, the entrapment of that energy into yourself, as you're going through this space, you're understanding the necessity that is needed, that is the aspects of the spiritual decay. That decaying process, that putrefaction process, the things falling away, you shedding a lot of layers. That's the first level of that spiritual decay. You need a lot of this shit to decay. That's why when you're thinking about the wintertime, and in the winter, everything is going into a state of dormancy, everything is dying, everything is renewing itself, getting ready for the spring. So you got to understand, I had to understand for myself, it was like, this is results of my work. So a lot of times when you're thinking about the entrapments, the cycle of entrapment, when you're getting entrapped, when you're encasing yourself, it's based on you feeding it's based on you feeding versus being fed. When one is we talked about this on Friday. So the lecture's up now. There's a difference between you feeding yourself and you being fed. Because when you're feeding yourself, your intuition, it forces you to really look deep at what the ingredients are, what that energy really is, what that space really is, what it encompasses. What does it mean based on the aspects of, if you're inside of a space and you understand, you've been read something about the quantum world, and you're realizing that time is not linear, time doesn't exist, it's a constriction, then you got to look inside of your space, and now that you're vibrating or changing this rate of speed with yourself, time doesn't exist. So that excitement is that insecurity coming to the surface first. You have to understand, like, I understand, like, when I was feeling anxious and anxiety and feeling like, oh my God, like, I didn't know how to handle it, that was my insecurity coming to the surface. That was letting me know what had to decay. That's letting me know what I had to assess. With your intuition pushing you outside of that comfort zone, what you're used to doing, what you thought that you were going to do simply based on, oh, you're at this stage in your life, so it's naturally supposed to happen. That's what we were taught in the aspects of that learned behavior. But as I've talked about these learned behaviors before, I'm going to slow it down, but I want to get this, there's a lot of energy coming through. When you're thinking about that space with yourself, when you're leveling up, when you're going to the next position, one thing that one of my mentors taught me was you must be mentally in that space before anything. You got to be mentally there. You must be mentally in that space before anything in the physical can form. This is how I expounded past it and got deeper into it. So use something as simple as whenever I was at my jobs, and I talked about this in the video, on my TikTok. Whenever I was inside of a position, my bosses liked me and I didn't need praise. The reason that my bosses, like my managers, the management teams, the bosses, the figureheads, the overheads, the reasons that they like me so much, greetings. The reason that they rock with me so much is because when I came to them, I wasn't approaching them as a worker. I wasn't approaching them as an employee. I would approach them with, you remember when we was in school and like, hey, whatever, put the question in the answer. Remember, put the question in the answer. So like whatever the answer was, whatever the question was, that was a part of the answer. So like if my boss was like, hey, ask me a question about, hey, what do you think about that stuff moving to that shelf? Something simple like that. My answer would be, well, looking at the stuff on that shelf based on this shelf, and then me being direct, me not really thinking I'm doing it, I'm sitting there like, well, we can condense a lot of this stuff to go onto that shelf. A lot of stuff on this shelf, we can put the stuff that we really don't sell anymore, or we know we got to keep on hand, because in a lot of restaurants, if you work with companies, and there's a lot of stuff that you got to keep on hand simply for inventory purposes, we can put that to the top, and everything else that's easily accessible. My boss looked at me every single time, was like, I like that you bring a solution to the table. You're not stuck within a state of, that's not your job. That I'm going to get to that when I get this. You got to understand, you got to be mentally in that space before anything can happen. When it's coming into, especially with doing your work based on the insecurity, based on your anxiety, your regrets, your guilt, a lot of times we'll sit there inside of a space with ourselves, and just because we have done elements of just because we've done some of those elements, we get confused with that being progress. When really that's just letting you know that you can be a part, you can be in that world. You can enter that space. You can enter that space. You can enter that frequency. But can you sustain yourself inside of that frequency? Can you sustain yourself inside of that space? Can you sustain yourself on that field? Can you sustain yourself on that court? Can you have you gained the discipline with yourself to maintain that level at all times? Because remember, when you're going into a space based on becoming, when you're becoming something, when you're in that state of becoming, that is you, just authentic to you. It does, like, I'll use the example. Me, occult psychologist, occult therapist, shadow shamanic healer. Those are based in my lineage. That's based on what I've learned. That's based on all the aspects of myself. So becoming those things, everything that I do to these things are authentic to how I've already learned how to think, and relearning not what to think, but going into how to think. Me going through my emotional intelligence, me going through this bouts of emotional intelligence and really understanding myself, me looking at me sourcing and looking at my triggers before I even step into that position, and then really taking that honest feedback to just myself first. See, when you're thinking about the aspects of entrapment, when you're thinking about how you keep getting entrapped in things, you keep getting stuck in certain cycles, in circles and paradigms. This year ain't nothing like this year happened just like last year or whatever, because you're getting stuck in the physical aspects. Remember, like, a lot of times we get stuck in the physical aspects. So it's like you're looking like, okay, cool, at this point I'm supposed to be here. But in reality, man, we've talked about this before. There's a difference between where you are and where you're at. Where you're at in the physical sense is the reflection of where you are truly. So if the result outside of me is not encompassing of where I want to be, I can't fail or use the same fail-safe of saying things that leave me entrapped. Because this is naturally how we speak, this is naturally how you project. So if I got a question, this is the question I wanted to pose. If you're not used to practicing with yourself the terms of self-love, that means self-assessment, accountability, opening up to self-awareness, really looking at yourself, having that having that higher state of a conversation with yourself, even if it sounds really fucking harsh, because a lot of times, this is also a major key into your shift, this is when you really start looking at yourself beyond the surface, and you stop trying to convince yourself, and you really start looking at yourself. It's kind of like it's kind of like when I used to look in the mirror and be like, oh my God, I'm fat, and I've gained so much weight, and I gotta stop eating this food, and all of that type of shit. And then I'm looking inside of the mirror, and then I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and instead of really looking at, why am I eating what I'm eating? What emotions am I feeding? Instead of me not understanding this aspect, I would pretty much for 15 minutes make myself feel good. I would pretty much for about 15 minutes try to make myself feel good. Instead of me really sitting there with myself, and since I'm sitting there trying to make myself feel good, I need everything around me to make me feel better about myself. And if it's not giving me what makes me feel better about myself, then I have to prove something. You see how you get stuck in that cycle of entrapment? Because it came from the first insecurity. It came from the first line of doubt. It came from a lot of the things that a lot of my learned and unassessed behaviors. It came from a lot of those shadows and a lot of the shit I wasn't really dealing with. Like, if you came to me, and I always say this, if you came to me 5-6 years ago and you said I'd be sitting in front of you, locks in need of a retwist, or I'd be sitting here speaking about where I'm at with myself and being honest, I look at you like I don't even know who the person is you're showing me in that video, because I had to go through the spiritual decay. You got to go through this decaying process. See, that unknown aspect, that's going through the decaying process. That's when you start really looking at yourself, and you're taking that assessment, and you're realizing that you've been trapping yourself. You've been trapping yourself. What altars do you keep going to? What have you deified inside of your space instead of what have you deified or personified or projected that is making you feel guilty about yourself, doubt about yourself, self-worth about yourself, in these aspects in your space? What things in your space are doing this that you deified? Because I think you have to, this is how we really start breaking that shit down. I had to really look at, it was nobody's job to like make sure I was happy. Nobody could make me no one can make me happy. Nobody can make me sad, upset, mad, nothing. Unless whatever element that I was projecting into that space, the only way it could connect in the argument, the conversation, is if it was already present inside of myself. So my external idea of looking at things from that perspective, that's how you keep getting stuck. Because it's entrapment. You're thinking based on the title. Based on, remember, because this is the first lesson that we getting into of chaos and order. When you're in a state of chaos, and I made that post Saturday. When you're in a state of chaos, that's the natural process. You are naturally chaos. The orders of your chaos, or the reason that you're ensuing and you step into chaos, it gives two different sets of orders. Because this is when you have to really realize, like, what orders am I acting on? See, when you keep going into chaotic situations, your job, relationships, friendships, they always seem to be chaotic, and it always seems to be on something based on lack. Every time that you seem to get involved into some shit, it always seems to be based on lack. They don't have this. They don't have that. They don't have that. Or I did this because they didn't have that. That made me a good person because I'm helping them. And then when it can't, I've said this shit before. Just like when it comes to the aspects of relation, if everybody inside of your space constantly has an issue that they're not taking accountability for with themselves, and then you're always seemingly there with a solution, and then you're not taking accountability for your own energy in reaction, then your space is based on lack. You seek lack. You seek lack because you seek to try to stay independent. You seek to be the realest nigga. You seek to be one of these things. Because when it comes to growth, you really start looking at my appearance in a certain space to maintain a certain level of comfort is not worth it. This is when we start understanding the true aspects, when you start breaking into that worth. See, when I had to break down the true aspects of worth, I had to go through that process and understand the ugly phases or the not so appeasing phases. But then when I really got comfortable sitting in that space, I'm sitting in front of y'all. I stay clean. I keep my basics are in play. My energy's in play. It doesn't change what I'm going to say. It doesn't change how I speak, when I speak, how my tongue is guided. It doesn't change any of that. And that's based on assessment. That's based on no bias. That's based on being impartial. See, when you're not used to being impartial and that insecurity, whenever it comes time for you to say certain things to certain people, you can't say it. But then now it becomes a buildup because you're not used to having that conversation with yourself. You sitting there like, well, I wanted to tell them how I felt, but I was afraid that they were going to react a certain way, act a certain way. Okay. You not saying now you have to take that assessment with yourself. Is what you say, or what you're saying really going to help this person grow? Because you got to ask yourself that same question. See, this is how we understand the law of even exchange. Everything that I give freely, because it's based on where I've assessed, what I've learned. We talked about this aspect in the creation. Regardless, all of my shit's impartial, unbiased. Either you gonna take it or you're not. That's not my quarrel. Your quarrel or conflict with yourself of taking it in and really looking at yourself and looking at your life, going deeper than the surface, that's no quorum to me. And since I maintain myself inside of that space, I naturally can continue my works. Think about something simple as this. If you're used to the physical being in order, So you're used to seeing it before you visualize it. And we know the difference between visualization and seeing shit. So let's look at this. You're used to seeing things before you can even visualize it. You depend heavily on seeing it before you can visualize it. But you have to understand that once you take accountability for your visualizations, or the roots for your visualizations are creating what you see and how you see it. Are you seeing things based on what they are or what you want them to be? That all deals with the aspects of yourself, the security you have within inside of yourself. Because I can sit here and I can use a simple example for the fellas. Can you sit there and look at your mans or your homeboy or your friend and be like, yo, you looking sharp today. You looking sharp today. Yo, you looking, whatever shorty come by you today, nigga, they gonna want a piece. Can you say that comfortably? I can. Can you say that comfortably to one of your homeboys? Regardless of what they look or how they look at you. Cause they gonna look, if they're not used to somebody providing that from the masculine sense, if you can't say that from the masculine sense, cause you know you say that about the same shit that you say to yourself in the mirror, can you say to others? In that sense of like, niggas gonna think I'm gay, niggas gonna think that no. That's what you're thinking. So that's what you're gonna project. So that's what you visualize in your mind, that anybody, because your insecurity, that lack of worth in yourself, you're not used to speaking life into people. You're not used to speaking life. Because every time you spoken something into somebody, it came behind it was an intent. There was an ulterior motive. Because you used to motherfuckers, you're used to shorty saying, ooh, you look good in your inbox. Ooh, girl looking at you in your inbox, say, ooh, you look cute. And then later on, they be like, yeah, I got a bill due. You ain't, because you're on that frequency. Because that's what you do in some way, shape, or form. That's how you defined looking good. That's how you define looking good. That's how you define acting a certain way. That's how you defined it. That's why you keep receiving that shit. For shorties, you mad because old buddy, here, take this, and it wants something back from it. But you got to remember, that's how you defined your worth. That's how you defined your worth only in the physical. You ain't defined nothing in the sense of a mental, because your mental subconscious, the root, remember I told you about the root chakras up here and your crown's down here. So you ain't used to nobody crowning every time somebody gives you a compliment on your crown. That's why you always confuse it with something sexual. Because your crown is down here. You ain't dipped down to get your crown yet. That's why you put so much emphasis down here on yourself. That's how you're used to feeding. That's how you're used to getting your energy. If that's not happening, or if anything based on the word system that you're rooted in isn't happening, then you upset. It gotta be everything else other than yourself. I remember sitting with myself like, it's everybody else but myself. It gotta be everybody else. It gotta be another dude. It gotta be another dude. It gotta be another play. It gotta be something else. And that shit fucked my head up so much to where, like, I remember I went back and looked at, like, I'm sitting here thinking about text messages I would send. All my text messages were accessories. All of my text messages, everything that I ever said was based on I had an ulterior motive. I knew that I had an ulterior motive because when I didn't get the reaction that I wanted, then I would react to that reaction. Oh, they're not gonna text me back? All right, cool. I'm about to go out with the crew. Oh, they ain't gonna answer the text me. They ain't gonna answer my phone call. Fine. When they call me, I ain't gonna answer. I'm gonna wait 3 times before they call me. Oh shit. Oh, they don't want to give me my money and my raise. All right, cool. I'm gonna start stealing food. Oh, they don't want to do this for me? All right, cool. So think about it. You entrapped yourself. So then when that thought form is now created inside of your mindset and you stuck within that program, everybody, now you going back and forth because you stuck in the duality. So now everything that's ever happened to you, you start to do because it represents your negative space. You only can do what's inside of that space. So now you'll go from being attentive with an ulterior motive, because you have an ulterior motive. I'm not doing readings right now, but you can't inbox me. We can set up an appointment for a reading. But when you got to understand this aspect with yourself, think about how you're navigating in all your, like when you think about your moves versus your steps. If my moves are always seem to be the same and they keep giving me the same result, it's not the moves that I'm making, it's the steps behind my moves that I'm not assessing. See, that's where your intuition kicks in. Because your intuition lets you know that your standard ain't, your intuition will trigger you and be like, you'll see something come into your space, something that's simple like you see a nigga walking down the street, or you see a chick walking down the street, and you look at them and be like, ugh, you'll get triggered by that shit. But that's letting you assess your standard. The only reason you can react to it is because you're on that frequency. The immediate thing you say, well, I got a card. I don't see how, like, I guess they ain't. Because now you project without taking into accountability of yourself. Now you project. I remember one thing my mother used to always do. This is one thing that stayed in my mind. One thing my mother always used to do. I remember my pops would there would be like the guys around the neighborhood that didn't like, they were hungry or whatever. My pops would bring them to the house. My pops would bring them by the crib. And like they'd be standing outside. He wouldn't let them in the house. He had respect for his house. He wouldn't let that energy in the house. But he would go in there and like, if my mom was cooking chicken, he would ask my mom like, hey, I'm gonna take a couple pieces of chicken and give them to the guys outside. My mom automatically would be like, why would you give them this food? I was like, and then my pops would say something like, well, he don't eat that. Because this is back when I was in my vegetarian phase. He doesn't eat that. It's only us. And if you don't cook it, you're going to throw it away anyway. My mom couldn't see that. It was like, but when you're looking at your space with yourself and you really start thinking about how that lays on your mindset, you start looking at how you started doing, you start looking at how you start to become the opposition of that with yourself from a space of lack. I remember one thing my pops always said. My pops always said that shit forever. He was like, even though like I always say this, my pops is a super Catholic. Even though my pops is a super fucking Catholic Christian, his mantra always was, and it had nothing to do with physical shit. And the more that I'm going back into my lessons, I'm like, damn. My pops was like, I never need anything. My father owned everything. I'm good. I've got all the riches. I am him. He is I. He would say these things and he would go into that spat. The spirit would take hold of him and I always be around. So I'm like, ooh, I'm bringing it out. Cause that's what I'm naturally supposed to be doing. It's coming out of him. He's saying these things. And then when I sit back and look at it, I'm like, damn, that's gratitude. He's demonstrating gratitude. Even though he's doing it from an aspect of penance or the decay, to decay something in an aspect with something, he's speaking in gratitude. So you got to understand the language is, all of this shit is going to make sense to you when you're inside of that space with yourself. Everything, you start understanding everybody in their authentic self. Everybody's in an authentic position. It's not your job. It's not your job because that's your insecurity speaking. That's your guilt speaking. That's your regret speaking. That's those internal shits that you ain't dealing with speaking, coming to the surface every time you see somebody doing something that's not based on entrapment. They're following their intuition of their true self. They're sitting in their true path. They can sit in that space and become still with themselves, and you can watch them do their work. And if you sit there and you pay attention and you allow yourself to get triggered, then you ask questions based on you being triggered and sitting with it for a little while. I guarantee you that shit starts to change. I can guarantee it. When your intentions are of the purest of your highest self, for your highest good, your intuition is always going to lead you to places that are going to challenge your comfort zone. If you keep putting yourself in spaces of entrapment, that means you want to immediately feel good. That means you immediately want to avoid. That means every time you come back to another space, all you're thinking about is what you don't have. You got to think about how you program the space. You got to think about what the programs that you're living in. I talked about this in the lecture. You have that I remember having that hustle mentality. I'm going to get it by any means. I'm going to get what I want when I want by any means. I had to understand that I was speaking that shit from lack. So yeah, I would get everything based on lack. I would get everything based on lack. So the job application, based on lack. The certification, it was based on lack. It was that was based on me staying entitled or searching for a title to keep me separated away from myself. But when it came time for me to really start doing that work behind that, because even in that space, you're going there for some lessons anyway. So now that's when the reality come in. You sitting there mad because you can't finish the test. You sitting there mad because you don't feel smart enough. Because you going back to when you was in the 7th and 8th grade and your teacher said that you weren't going to amount to shit. You stuck back in that space. You stuck back in the space of the first time you told your mom some shit about your dad, about your stepfather, about whoever, and then they gave you your first line of regret. It's your fault. They told you it was your fault. You shouldn't have did this and did that. So now you outliving that inside of that space based on lack. You felt like you've been lacking some shit. So everything that you created, everything that you got that was glory to God and glory to Jesus and glory to Allah was based on you staying in lack. You define Jesus as lack. You define Jesus as lack. You define Allah. You define every time you go into any one of these aspects and you going through, you confuse it. Your offering is of lack. Everything that you're doing externally is based on an offering of lack. You stay within the cycle of detriment. So the moment that you get something, you must stay within detriment. You never, even when you go to the aspect of how you're feeding yourself, the detriment of the knowledge of what you're putting into your body is what you have to ignore. That's the cognitive dissonance. So you keep looking at yourself like, I can't make my physical look the way I want it to look. But you got to understand that it starts with the visualization. That means the feelings that come up based on that visualization of you thinking about that future apartment, that future job, that first future house, everything that gets triggered, those are the things that you got to deal with. Those are the things that you got to face. You got to do that work. Where you're at, you're in the position that you need to be in. The only reason that you can see that is because, guess what? Because now you got to assess the emotions that the emotional underline to that signature. See, being stuck in the space of lack, you devoid your signature has no value. Think about this. I want you to think about this. You remember back in the day? The old heads would tell us. I remember all my OGs and my old heads would tell me all the fucking time. They would tell me shit like, your word is your face is your card. Your word is your bond. Things of that nature. And then when we're looking at it now, it's like you can go buy some shit and you can go buy and rent the life and then look good and have the honor that you needed to get. You got to get back to that. That was actual fucking science. That was actual fucking science that the OGs were spitting. And then you looking at the OGs standing on the corner, you're looking at their life in the physical form. Man, you standing on the corner. What the fuck you mean, nigga? You trying to tell me that we rich and shit, but you've been on the corner ever since you was 60. And I remember one of my OGs hit smacked one of my friends upside, one of my homies upside the head back when we were little. And he was like, nigga, I'm rich. I'm rich. Every day I come out here, I'm known. This is the level that I've chosen for myself. In this being the level that I've chosen for myself for the things that I'm willing to face and I'm not willing to face, the things that I'm willing to face, I have faced. I've dealt with. So I can give you the lessons based on that. I can't give you the lessons on the shit I haven't faced. But if you looking at me like, oh God, but think about, we in the same space. What are you talking about? See, you're changing your mindset, that decaying process. I had to change a lot of processes because of that decaying process that I was scared of. Because that's legit what I was. I was scared. I needed a sense of control with myself. I needed a sense of control. You sitting there mad, man, I own the block. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't own the block. You don't own the block. You from the block. You from the block. You from that neighborhood, but you don't own it. Because ownership means accountability. Ownership means accountability. If I own something, which is myself, that means I take full accountability for whatever I project, whatever I put into my space. I take full responsibility for myself. When I speak, I don't speak from a level that is based on lack. I speak from a level that's based on creating self-sufficiency, because that's my mantra. That's what's programmed in my subconscious. Every time something hit my subconscious now, it's a different thought process. As opposed to before, I had all of those fractures. So the moment someone bring up some shit, and I was afraid, this is the teaching moment for myself a lot of times, someone can be like, hey, well, what about this, this, and this? Well, we got to put in the work. We got to put in the work. There has to be a plan to be assessed. My signature naturally is of chaos. Is naturally of chaos. But my orders, the partnership, the merge that I'm in with myself is based on order. It's based on growth. It's based on setting out the order. The order of chaos. The orders of my chaos is based on growth. The orders of my chaos are not based on lack anymore. See, a lot of times we chaos beings. We got to burn this shit down. You still thinking from the lack mentality. So that's why you get excited. That's why every time something burns down, every time that something happened outside of you, that something bad happened in the news, you react the same exact way. You react from your orders of lack. See, if we had our own schools, we ain't got to worry about that. If we had our own guns and security, we won't have to worry about that. You're giving yourself your answer. When you gonna put in the work? But that starts with emotional intelligence. That starts with dealing with your fucking shadow. That starts with doing that internal work. See, you just can't, all we got to do is get up enough money and we can go get guns. All right, cool. If tomorrow, think about it like this. If tomorrow somebody came into where you were at, had the money to bring the guns, got you the guns and got you the ammunition for those guns. But if nobody inside of your squad, your team, your family, anybody inside of that space, they have no form of training to get anybody registered for guns, to any loopholes when it comes to guns. They don't have any type of security or business mentality when it comes to guns. You basically gonna be just like when you look on TV, when you look at the kids on Africa, like you look at Lord of War, and you see the motherfuckers giving the kids to the guns, and they running around, they making the motherfuckers hot, shoot everything. That's the same shit that you looking for. That's the same shit you gonna do. That's the same shit you been doing. But you looking at, oh my God, the black on black violence is because you say the answer because we have a lack of impoverished space, but then everything's based on the mentality of the visualization inside of your space. So if I'm at conflict with myself, everything outside of me is going to be in conflict. If I'm at conflict, if I'm at lack with myself, everything outside of me is going to be in lack. I'm going to seek to try to seek to feed everything else from lack. All because I'm thinking about I'm trapped. I'm trapped inside of myself. I'm not dealing with myself. So now, even though I can feel good because I can go to the club on the weekend, but then I can go to the club on the weekend, but when it comes time to Monday, today, the day of the change, the moon day, the day to invest, I ain't got shit to invest because I ain't doing no work because I'm thinking I'm not abundant. But I have a day off. I have a day off. Google free as shit. You can go get scribed. You can go get scribed. You can get scribed, Audible, any of those fucking shits. Them bitches got free trials. Absorb as much information you can until you got to pay the price to it. You got to. This is the mentality that you have to change. Even when we're thinking about the aspects of providing and protecting, as when we talk about ourselves as gods, men, gods in that space, and we talking about being the motherfuckers that are providing and protecting, you still thinking about from a physical space. You're not talking about, you're not providing a space for emotional intelligence because you never got taught it. When are you gonna take the stance? When are you gonna invest in those sessions with yourself to learn emotional intelligence? Because that's the first thing that you need to be able to provide. Everything else is a byproduct of that emotional intelligence. Because you riding around, you stroking up bitches. Okay, cool, you out here stroking up bitches. What the fuck that mean? But if your strokes keep making bitches crazy, bitches go crazy, they be trying to burn up my house, man, because I got that. You confuse that being good. You're a good nigga. Good job. Because if you look, you're a good nigga. And just that basic definition is an ignorant person. So you're good and ignorant, or you're off of your square. So the only way that you operating is off of your square. So anybody that reflects the feminine aspect that reflects in your space that's off of their square and you reacting to, it's because you off of your square. So then you got to think about the aspects, man. I can't stand a woman that's trying to talk down to me. What's the conversation you having with yourself, bro? What's that conversation you having with yourself? You got to ask that question to yourself. Are you speaking positive to yourself? Are you speaking life into yourself? Are you going through the changes of speaking life inside of yourself? In order for when you get it, now you're not infatuated. That way, anytime a chick come onto your shit and say, Grand Rise King, have a beautiful day, you can say much gratitude and leave it at that. When it comes to you, sis, like you talking about, you want somebody to leave the space for you to be able to nurture and protect, nurture and guidance, but you never learn nurture and guidance because you still stuck on the despicable shit your mother did, and now you stuck on that all fucking day. So you don't know what nurturing and guidance is. You got to get that shit to yourself first. You've had the lessons. You've had all of the lesson plans in front of you. One thing that I said before, the aspect of you'll never go hiding. I said it in the video. I saw it in the Kevin Samuels thing. He's like, you'll never go higher than your baby mother or your baby father, which is true. Because anything higher than your baby mother or baby father is going to require more work and take you outside of your comfort zone. All that shit that I held my nigga down and I carried the bricks and made sure he was good in jail and had shit on his books, and I made sure that this nigga didn't ever have to get a license. Think about what you're saying. Nothing that you did was based on the growth of that dude, the guidance of that guy to make him become better. And the only time that you ever said it was based on an emotional aspect, based on keeping him down because you've been kept down with you down there. So you don't need nothing above you. The moment that a nigga get on, then he start acting all different. That's your projection. Because that's the way you've seen your life the entire time. That's what you've seen in your life. You saw your mom hold your dad down, or you saw your mom hold and put all these niggas before her. And then that became now you're saying, I got something to prove. So now you're doing the same shit inside of your space. And then you upset. Now you upset and mad. Now you got motherfuckers cutting night because I got to tell you about this aspect of the divine masculine. And I only can speak from the divine masculine from my aspect. But I can do the overall aspect impartial. The divine is gentle. The divine is direct. The divine is not going to give you what you want. The divine is going to give you what you need. The divine is a divine nigga as myself. I'm not going to sit there, and if you decide to do whatever you're doing, that's not going to affect my sleep pattern. That's not going to affect the works that I'm doing because I know what I'm doing. I'm confident inside of my position that I know what I'm doing is to build for the greater rise. That's the confidence when you actually understand your intuition. You start looking at things like, see, that's a result of this. Instead of you getting triggered by the shit all the time. Instead of you sitting there in that space like, but my life, but niggas ain't supposed to do shit, bitches ain't supposed to do shit. You sitting there saying, I'm tired of doing wife shit for ain't shit niggas. I'm tired of doing husband shit for ain't shit bitches. When you gonna do it for yourself? Why aren't you should, if you're naturally doing it for yourself, it don't matter what comes into your space. If it comes into your space and if it comes into your space and absorbs it, that means it's gonna learn it. That means you can actually show them and teach them and talk to them and speak to them. But if you only doing it based on trying to get a title, because you trying to get a title from some shit, you're not gonna you're not gonna face the state of decay. See, a lot of those old learned behaviors gotta decay. That's why when you look at motherfuckers that are in there, this is like, use an example. If you've not seen, y'all remember the movie, I Think I Love My Wife with Chris Rock? And he kept fucking with the chick that was like the other chick because she was everything visually appealing and giving into that nigga. But then they say that line in there like, you don't want to be 31 at the club. You don't want to be 31 years old at the club. That's based on what you consuming. Are you consuming these things? What are you consuming? What are you actively consuming? What are you actively consuming? Are you actively consuming things that are going to, are you consuming the fire to burn? To keep what energy are you consuming into that chaos? Because your chaos has that order. This is what I mean by that. Chaos has that order. Are you consuming things based to keep your chaotic sense of lack? Or are you combining things that are helping you come into growth? Are you coming into things that are making you forced to step outside of yourself and outside of that comfort zone? Like, oh my God, my comfort zone is fucked up and I've done this for like 5-6 years of my life. What have I been doing? When you ask these questions, are you sitting with yourself? Are you commending yourself? Or are you waiting for somebody? Are you used to somebody saying, well, yeah, you did a lot of work in 5 years. You did a lot of work in 6 years. Or are you going to sit there and from the lack mentality, I'm tired of not having support. I'm tired of somebody not giving me what I want. I'm tired of somebody not giving me what I need. The only reason you're tired of it is because you're not giving it to yourself. The only reason I was tired of that shit because I wasn't giving it to myself. The only reason I was having those restless nights because I wasn't giving shit to myself. At the end of the fucking day, I'm doing the same shit I did 3 days ago, 3 weeks ago, living out the same fucking cycles. Whenever something came into my space that was like, ooh, you can get untrapped by doing this, I saw it as a scam instead of learning from it. I'm looking at everything, and since I'm not used to the steps, I'm making moves without my actual thought. I'm making moves based on entrapment, trying to trap myself. Think about this. Nigga hit you in your inbox right now talking about $750 to your fucking Cash App link. And you know your rent due tomorrow. You know your rent due. The only reason that's coming to you is the test. The test is simple. Damn, this nigga really came up. Every time I'm in this space of lack, something comes to me that seems so, it makes me feel good. Like, ooh, I need to get that. I can do that. But if another person, another motherfucker drop something on the page, and like you'll do everything to go get the money, you'll go everything to go get that $50 to go turn it into $500. You'll do everything inside of your space to go get that $50 to turn it into $500. But let somebody come and say, hey, I got this training course, or I got these sessions. I got that training course. $50. $50 4 weeks. You'll say you ain't got $50 all day. But then throughout the week, you'll spend at least $10 a day on bullshit. So after 5 days, you have 50. So what's stopping you? See, this is when we gotta start asking. You really gotta look at yourself. You the one that be stopping yourself. That investment. Like one of the biggest things for me as one of the biggest things for me as an occult therapist and a shadow healer, shamanic guide, is I provide the service that creates the space. Everything, I create the service that creates the space that matches what I'm doing. It's authentic to me. These conversations that I have on these normal bases is when I'm dropping a live, when I'm doing a lecture, when I'm dropping a class, when I'm dropping what I'm dropping. That shit based on I've interpreted it, I've lived with it, I've sat with it, I've allowed myself to become it so I can then release it. See, you keep thinking about things based on the quick release. Because you're not willing to allow some shit to decay first. So the moment that so every time something comes up, that pressure to do it is, man, I can't do that because I got to do this. I can't do that because I have to do this first. Okay. Honesty. Because if it's meant for you, it will be there when you're ready for it. You've been sitting there the entire time that you got your crib, or you got a car. You got a whole car. You are behind on payments on your car. You ain't got no insurance on your damn car. You ain't got no fucking license. You ain't got no license. You ain't got no insurance. Your insurance is bad. And you behind on payments. But you trying to maintain that car because you keep saying to yourself, but everybody depends on me for a ride. But now you got to ask yourself a true question to yourself. If you didn't have the car, you didn't have the whip, would they call you? Would they have a reason to call you? See, that's entrapment. See how you entrap yourself that fast? You feel guilty because somebody in their life fucking up, but they're going through their transition. But you want to make them feel good about that's not what it's there for. See, because you want them to feel good about their transition and make them uplift them so that you can feel good about your shit. But it's time to get better. Unbiased. You can say because all you're going to do every time you go into that space is feel more and more disheartened. You're going to feel the weight of the real energy inside of that space. You built that bond based on guilt. You built that bond based on that insecurity. So every time that emotions come up to the height, use an example. You got a homegirl. You got a homeboy. Every time that they're in a relationship, the relationship goes bad. So y'all talk about the bad moments in relationships. Right, yes, exactly, vicariously. So y'all talk about the bads in relationships. But every time you in a good space, you notice that you can't go talk to them because you're going to feel bad for telling them that he's teaching me this or she's teaching me that. Because you afraid that, yo, man, your girl teaching you how to do what? Your girl teaching you how to do yoga? Your girl teaching you to meditate? That nigga got you eating, that nigga got you drinking smoothies and running and shit? Girl, ain't no man gonna be changing me. He gotta accept me as I am. But then you gotta think about it. You said that before. You said it. That was you. You said it. So now you gotta really start assessing your space. See, all of them movements that you made, the reason you so vicariously, exactly, that vicarious state move over there is because you still feel like you need something from it because you still pulling from lack. Even the conversation to them is based on lack because they're lacking something. So when you're talking to them and it sounds dry and now you're upset because it sounds dry, see, motherfuckers don't appreciate me, you can't be happy for me. I'm happy. I got a man in my life. I'm happy. I got a chick in my life. They're giving you your answer. You're only happy because somebody's in your life. You're only happy because something's occupying the space. But when things are not occupying that space, now you get stuck in the emotional rip that is the time. Now you get stuck and you like, man, but my life, okay. What are you going to make a plan for? As you're building your space, are you building from the mindset of lack, or are you building from the mindset of true growth? Growth is going to shake a lot of shit. Growth is when you see yourself sitting in the growth is when you see yourself sitting down and you're like, God damn, I ain't got the money to go spend it, go eat any fucking food. And then the spirit saying, maybe your higher self is like, maybe it's time for me to do a little fast real quick. If I go if I'm not getting, my money doesn't clear the account until this time or this time, maybe it's time for me to fast. Maybe I should take this maybe I should elevate this thought instead of saying that I'm hungry. The first step in how to make that plan of growth from lack is to accept that y'all know I'm always saying that shit. That you are deserving, but you're not entitled. That the shit's gonna be destructive as fuck. Whatever you about to step into is gonna be destructive as fuck to that old character that you put yourself in. You gotta own that. You gotta own that thought to itself. Much gratitude. You gotta own that thought to yourself. You gotta own that. You have to be willing to step into that space with yourself. This is what I always talk about shadow work. Shadow work is synonymous with everything. It ain't never over. Everything that you doing everything you are doing is in the duality of your shadow. So if you're not assessing your shadow, then you stuck within the duality. Remember, we're supposed to rise out of duality and become whole to yourself first. So when you making that plan of growth, it's something as simple as, how do you go to sleep? Something as simple as how you go to sleep, how you wake up. Like, I use an example that I still use to this day. My first step in the discipline with one of my first steps in the discipline with myself was, I was reading some shit about, put water beside the bed. I put 2 bottles of water by the bed. Before I put 2 bottles of water beside my bed. 2 bottles of water beside the bed, all right, cool. I forgot them bottles of water were there a lot of times. I forgot that my water was sitting there a lot of times. Forgot my water was sitting there a lot of times. Because my mind be so flustered, the first thing I go grab is my phone. Because my phone was face up. Something simple. So instead of me having my phone face up to go look at my phone's now face down. So I had to go through the training process because I was like, I remember always being asked, yo, why you always got your phone face down? That shit simple shit plays in your head. Why you always got your phone face down? Because I'm not looking at it. I don't need it. It ain't got nothing to do with I'm hiding anything. I just turn my phone down on its face because if I'm watching a movie or if I'm reading or if I'm doing something, I don't want to be disturbed. So I had to reprogram that process in my mind. So now my phone, even though my phone, because I'm not paying for the YouTube shit for my screen to go dark, don't give a fuck. Like, even right now, like, before I am setting up to go to bed, my phone, hook it up to my Bluetooth, to my speaker, I pick my music, I pick the binaural beat I want to listen to. Over the last couple of days, I've been listening to this rain music and programming myself through the rain, because I'm the water bearer. Programming that aspect, and I turn my phone face down, got my 2 bottles of water, still got my 2 bottles of water. And then when I first wake up, 4:30, I do a full body scan. I don't touch my phone. Full body scan. I roll out of bed, meditate, 15 minutes, accumulate the day. I'm in gratitude. I'm in gratitude for the lessons. I'm in this space. I'm opening. I start seeing the visualizations of what's coming next. Then got my bottle of water. Put my bottle of water in front of me while I'm doing this, and I'm visualizing me putting that program into my water, and I drink my water. Then I start getting ready for my day. My day consists of me up 4:30, 5 o'clock. By the time 6 o'clock hit, if you look at all those videos on my TikTok, that is based on the course of action of learning what to do with inside of a space. I didn't start making videos on TikTok. It was just, I had the new space to be able to do it. That's the opportunity. So all of those thoughts that were rattling through my head, that used to be negative conversations, became positive conversations. They became authentic aspects of self. So now every video that I drop, that rising thought, that God thought that comes out of my mindset, I'm asking you a question. I'm forcing you to, when you look at you like, shit, nigga, I never even thought about it like that. My job is to continuously transform and transmute my perspective into something more. So naturally, everything that I do it matches that rhythm. So as I learn this process, master that process, that shit becomes autonomous. This is how we reprogram that subconscious mind. So now my subconscious is automatically on that every fucking day. Drop the video, positive, alright, cool. Switch over here, emails. Now I got, alright, cool. Now I gotta send out the now I gotta send out the text, grand rising text, messages inside of the group chats that I'm in because I'm mentoring and I'm teaching and all these aspects. I got all of that on the table. Everything that I've done started from the basis of when I was sitting there scared. In the first video, if you go back and look, I have 2 pages that are both Godico Alchemist. The first Godico Alchemist page was my first page I put all the God thoughts on. I remember those videos. Those are, if you look at the video and you think like, nigga, I'm sitting in front of a Red Lobster. I'm sitting in front of my job because I would get to work early because I had to take the bus or I had to walk. I would get to work early and I would sit there and I would type out the thoughts. And then it was too cold for me to sit there and be typing. My hands be cold. I said, let me speak it a little bit. 15-minute video here, 20-minute video there, 40, 35-minute video there. Then I broke an hour. Then I consistently started breaking an hour. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm breaking an hour. At that same time, I'm working on the podcast. I don't know shit about music. Don't know shit about music. But if you go look at the God Hour podcast and you go from season 1 to now we in season 5, you listen to the quality of the music, that's humbly me. And as I came into that space with the opportunity, my brother, he's no longer on Facebook. He got his shit on TikTok and Instagram. He made beats. That came into my space. It wasn't based on me needing to use him for beats, but I can speak to him for information. Cause just like he's on his path and he needed information from me, I can go get the same information from him. That's tribal connection. That's the tribal connection. Everybody inside of your space, this is when you start changing the opportunity. They represent where you're going. You're able to go into that space but this is based on you actually doing that assessment. When you ain't doing this, when I wasn't doing the assessment, I'd be sitting there sad and crying and mad and all the other shit. Cause I didn't have no discipline in my life. I always was in need of some shit. I was always lacking some shit. Yo, this ain't happening in 3 weeks. This ain't happening in 2 months. This ain't happening here. So what the fuck is this? I don't know. I'm in a different, you change your space, you change that mentality. And then as you become the new mentality. I've been doing live speaking, these aspects in a public forum for about 3 years now. This will be year 4 coming up. The top of the year I have my first speaking engagements that I'm ever so grateful for. I got new opportunities sitting on the table. But since I built the groundwork based on the foundation that matches that, it's based on growth. Every opportunity that comes to me is based on growth. It doesn't feel like it's a trap. It doesn't feel like I'm going to be stuck somewhere. It matches and it challenges me like, okay, cool, I got to do this. I got to do this next. See, when you start getting in this mentality, it changes everything. It changes that shit. You don't want to be sitting there for 4 or 5 years with yourself and you like still thinking the same shit. You still thinking if you still in the state of, I deserve this because I'm 30 something, what they got to do with anything? What they got to do with anything? 36. 30, fuck? 36. Gonna be 27 forever. That mindset with myself. I'm different now. I know that I'm not the same person that I used to be. I know I'm not the same. I know I've graduated out of the whole of mankind. I've graduated out of the whole of my humanity. I've assessed these aspects. So I've assessed the aspects of the Godhead, but I want more. Less is more. The less that I need. Yep. The opportunities are always there. But as I've said that before, the opportunities and the obstacles, they all in the same box. Opportunities are always there. You just got to assess where you're really at. You have to really look. This is when you look at yourself. This is how you start becoming authentic. This is how you start stepping into that space with yourself. Because as much as I teach, just believe I'm learning on the other end of that spectrum. I do not deny learning, because that's the only way that I can teach. That way I don't want to sit here and know nothing going against the people that are in that space, because that's what they're supposed to do. But I know that I'm pure, I'm primordial. I'm going back to that beginning. I'm in the beginning. I'm always going to the beginning. There is no end for me here. Everything that I've already discussed, when you first came down here, that was your ending. That was your ending when you came through the womb. That was your ending. Now you're in your beginning. But see, when we look at it as, I was born, that was my beginning. So you never want to die. See how you prolong the entrapment of death? Because you don't want to die. You don't want to you don't want to go into that darkness. You don't want to come meet one of us at the crossroads. Because that's where we're at. Every time I'm doing something that I think about it, every time that I say something, I'm always at a crossroad. If I turn the camera around, I look at how my apartment complex is lined up. It's a crossroad. Every time that I do a video, I'm at a crossroad somewhere. That's unconsciously into the space. Because I'm naturally at a crossroad or an intersection at a point. Just sitting there pointing. That's you naturally inside of your space. I ain't gotta do all the, but I do know also in that same space, as I'm leveling up, my shit's leveling up. I don't have to go seek anything anymore. It comes into it naturally. The energy levels for me over the last couple of weeks, based on my ascensions, because I'm dealing with dealing what was inside of the descent, fucking crazy. And that's the transparency. That's the path. That's your path. You doing your work where you at. There's a reason that you came into contact with this video right now. There's a reason that you've been rocking with listening to these videos for a while. There's a reason that you're here. But you got to that's on you. That's where that humility comes in. Because your humility is only found in the darkness. Your new perspective is your potential, your power is only found inside of the darkness. This healing is destructive. You're deserving, but you're not entitled. The level of honesty that it takes to really sit with yourself and remove those biases. Face yourself in those mirrors that you put up for so long on those walls. You're avoiding the mirror on the wall. You're avoiding the mirror by running into the wall every fucking day. You will avoid looking inside of your mirror and keep hitting the wall every single day. So you avoid going into the portal into yourself to go keep hitting a wall. You'll keep putting everything on that wall, and focused on that wall is your obstacle. The mirror right there. Here's your mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the flyest of them all? Ask yourself a real question. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Where's Lil Man at? Where's Lil Sister? Where's Lil Ma at? Where am I at? Where am I at really? Where am I at truly? Having that true conversation with yourself. Instead of you constantly in a state of avoidance. Constantly in a state of, I gotta do this. Constantly seeking that stimulation. You constantly seeking that stimulation. For what? What are you stimulating? You constantly seeking stimulation based on the addiction. You constantly stuck in the infatuation with yourself because you're afraid of the decay. You're afraid of that. You're afraid for that shit to decay. What you've been used to is no longer exists. I said that last year talking about the old paradigm. The old paradigm don't exist anymore. There's a bunch of old disgruntled motherfuckers arguing back and forth, still talking about, yo, we weren't this and we weren't that. Past that. That niggas is oppressed. Who's oppressed? I ain't oppressed. My results show me that I'm not oppressed. But it's the subtlety. I'm not looking for something in that physical shit of like, well, I should be, I never have to say I should be anywhere. I'm exactly where I need to be at. I don't need to rush. Go forward. I don't need to rush. I'm over 9 million years old. I'm over 90 fucking eons old. Fuck, I need to rush for it. I can sit here and keep producing. That's your legacy. What do you want to do with your life? How do you see yourself? How do you truly see yourself when you wake up? It's easy. I'm giving out a mirror. There's a mirror ritual that I give out to people all the fucking time. Something as simple as you stare. How long has it been since you actually looked in the mirror with yourself? You looked in the mirror at yourself. I mean, you just sat there in the mirror, lit a candle, breathed, took in that nice breath, and you just sat there looking in the mirror at yourself and admiring yourself. But in order to start admiring yourself, you got to tear yourself down. See, you want somebody to tear you down so you feel like you have a reason to pull yourself up. That's for the fear of tearing yourself down. So then when you're thinking about that insecure of my abandonment, insecure of my doubt, insecure of my lack. Let's say insecure of our lack. Stay on that. I'm insecure. I'm in the security of my own lack. That helps me build the pressure for me to move around and do what I need to do to prove myself. I'm going to prove myself to that nigga that I don't need it. I'm going to prove myself to that bitch I don't need her. Okay. Are you talking to them or your mother? You talking to them or your father? You talking to them or to the father that you never knew? You talking to them or to the mother that you despised? Who you talking to for real? See, these are the type of things when you come to a session with me, this is what we talking about. I can care less about what the fuck's going on with a COVID vaccine or anything. I had COVID a couple weeks ago. Okay, you needed that shit. Oh my God, I could have died. But did you die? What'd that COVID teach you? You had to sit down in your space and you really realized how alone you were. You really sat down in the space and you really realized where your worth was and how alone you were. You sitting in that space right now and your lack of getting something inside of your space and now you seeking the other emotion to fill that emotional void is all tied back to the thing that you haven't faced in the first place. All of this shit gonna go back to you. So what are you doing with it? How are you allowing yourself to move forward? What is it? What is in front of that door? What is in front of that door? And that's where I provide the guidance for that. I have somebody that hit me yesterday in the inbox yesterday and they were like, I want to get a reading with you. And the first thing that I told them is like, I need you to take these. I'm hearing the spirit said, tell her 3 days. I gave her 3 days. I said 3 days. I want you to start throwing out shit that no longer serves to the purpose of now. I want you to grab a bunch of water and drink water for the next 3 days. And I want you to get back in tune with your inner child before you come back to me. That was the first prescription that I gave her. First prescription. I'll see her in a couple of days. Or not. That doesn't have anything to do with me. When she's ready, I will appear. I'll reappear. But that's where you're going into with yourself of authenticity. See, my intuition is always going off. I'm always on that high. I'm always on that high vibrational vibe with. I'm always in that high sense of high with myself. I am drugs. Y'all heard that? Y'all, if you've seen American Guys, that nigga said, "I am drugs." I am drugs. I've been drugs for a long time. All the way going back to the aspect of thinking about like how women would act and how people would act around me They were feeding off of me because I didn't know my own ingredients, so I couldn't stop them from feeding. See, when you're coming out of that entrapment, that's what you're breaking yourself out of. That's what you're breaking yourself out of. That's what you're changing yourself with. Once you understand your own ingredients, your recipe, your makeup, this is when you really start being like, nigga, I'm truffle oil expensive. I'm caviar expensive. Nah, I'm more than that. I'm precious. There is no price tag on me. I'm abundant in a different way. Every time I go into a space, I provide what is necessary. I'm not trying to provide shit to make people feel good. If you feel good, it's a byproduct of you getting better. But I desire you to be the fucking best. I desire you to be the fucking best. I was going to do some readings, but nah. We don't wait. Everything with me, from services all the way including to the shadow work consultation, 2-hour video call with me, psychoanalysis. The reason that I require it to be a video call is because I'm reading more than just what you're saying. I'm looking at your body language. I'm watching how you slump down. I'm watching everything. And then after that, I'm going to give you then I'm going to write that now. I'm going to write that up, send that to you and say, ooh, here's the recommendations to go forward. My shadow work therapy sessions, they start at $350. It's a 4 to 6 week cycle. After the first 4 to 6 weeks that we go through in a bi-weekly cycle, the spirit's telling me to break it down. That 4 to 6 week cycle, we add on a month-to-month basis. And the price that depends on you. Everything from readings, which are my mini consults, to Natal Chart analysis, human design chart analysis, getting your human design chart sourced and designed and put out and analyzed by me. All of those services. And services that I do not offer to the public, you gotta ask. Say, hey, I need some stuff like this going on in my life. I had something, all right, cool. And then we can take that assessment, but it starts with a conversation. The inbox is open. My inbox is open 24 hours. I may not be open 24 hours. We gonna be honest. I may not be open 24 hours, but my inbox is open 24 hours. Meaning, if you feel the need to reach out, drop the message. I will get back to you. I just ask a couple things. I just ask a couple of things. Please indicate in your message gratitude of grand rising or good evening. Do not come into my inbox with some, I got a bunch of problems, because I will go invisible from you. You will have access to my inbox and you'll wonder why your messages don't go through. That's where my energy's at. My energy will block you. I don't have to do it anymore. I don't have to sit there and be like, I don't have to do it. It'll do it by itself. You'll block yourself. But yeah, everything, consultations, readings, all of the services. The inbox is open. Don't come to me talking about, oh my God, but I really need service. I'm really looking for that service, but the price. Don't come to me with that. Those prices are set to see where you're at. Just because you coming in, the simple factor that you're coming into that space and you are truly humble to want service. You're truly humble to service. I'll adjust that price because it ain't about the price. When you see the prices, you see why everything that I do is the natural. That's my protection. Because if a nigga see 125 beside a consultation, they gonna think really, really hard before they walk into the room. That's how you set. That's the price of your authenticity. I can set consultations to $2, but then it'll be a different energy coming into my space. I can $2 you up like, yeah, it's $2, and I can have a bunch of motherfuckers coming in and tell me about their baby mothers and baby fathers and all that bullshit. But if I put that price out there, just that thought and the intention I put behind that price, it makes them come in you coming in a more humble space. Because I see everything. I see it. You can't hide it from me once you're in the space. Once you come in, you've allowed me into your space. That's how. I don't need to feed from you. Fuck. I gotta feed from you. For what? It's lower level shit. It's lower level shit. That's earthbound deity shit. We on some Titan shit up here. But again, I desire you to be the fucking best. I want you to understand that this is chaos, is order. What orders are you acting in? The orders of lack are based upon entrapment, and the orders of growth are based upon intuition. Your intuition is going to take you outside of your comfort zone and force you to face things that you haven't faced before. Don't worry, it hurts. Don't worry, it hurts. Don't worry, it hurts. It hurts. I promise you it hurts. But it's going to be the sweetest pain. It's going to be the sweetest pain you ever felt. I promise. I promise you that. But yeah. I'm about to go in here and work on this week's podcast episode. And I'll see y'all throughout the week. I'll see some of y'all very, very soon. I'll see some of y'all very, very soon. You are welcome to sit at the table. You're welcome to sit at the table. But you must eat what's at this table. You're welcome to sit here, but you gotta eat it. You gotta be ready. That's one thing I wanted to get into. This week's Got Our podcast, it just came through that fast. This week's Got Our podcast, we're gonna talk about the boardroom. The levels of mastery. Just because you there and just because you can tap into that space, that don't mean that doesn't mean that you still ain't got to do the work. What it means is you got to do more work when you're inside of that space. You can get to the boardroom meeting. You can get to the boardroom. You can lay out an awesome spread at the boardroom. But when it comes time to close that deal, that's an entirely different you that's going to close the deal. And the one that's going to celebrate that deal, that's an entirely different version of yours. That's an entirely different version. An entirely different version. The one that's at the boardroom in this example we're going to use, I'm going to leave y'all with that example. The one that's at the boardroom, that's the networking. That's the state of the companionship. Your personality, how you move inside of that space. Your behavior, your discipline in that space, the people. I've talked about the aspects of the idea, the event, and the people. See, you got to stop looking at the people, then to the events, and look at the idea and realize that the idea, that's your highest self. So everything you're working at is to come up to this point, to that idea of yourself. Everything is going to be matriculating or trickling down like the rain. Let it rain and clear it out. Like the rain, and feed everything you need to feed. So when you sitting at that boardroom table, how are you sitting there? When it comes time to celebrate, you got to understand a lot of things. And this is something that I had to realize. I actually had the moment yesterday. There's a lot of things when you go into a space. You have motherfuckers around you that you can say, hey, take a ride with you. But you can't take them to the boardroom. You got motherfuckers you can take to the boardroom and they can do the reports and all that shit, but they can't help you celebrate. You got to understand where you're at in all of those tiers. You got to understand the purpose for all of them inside of your space because they're all there. From the people in your space, when you're around a bunch of people that are always bringing up the same problems, your mindset is being triggered to step into the events to become the solution to those problems. Not for them, for yourself. Because that's going to force you to look at the idea of how you've seen yourself the entire time. That's going to force you to look at the idea of yourself. I'm over 90 billion years old. But yeah, join me on TikTok. The video, I'm going to finish uploading the video out throughout the day. I was talking about the aspects of, are you the solution? Are you the solution, the asset, or are you the risk, the liability? Inside of your space right now, I want you to look around. I want you to look around. Are you an asset based on guilt? That means you reflect guilt into your space? Or are you an asset that has assessed your guilt and now you can look at the risk based on when you see something that can, somebody trying to make you guilty? Look around. Everything in your space. And the more that you start doing that, the more shit becomes invisible or visible or both are the same. You ain't got to do it. If you really doing your work, you ain't got to worry about, I got to cut this out my life. There'd be things you got to cut out your life directly. But once you understand the process of why it was there, that shit can't even come into your radar. It distorts. It projects. It can't look at you in your face. They can't look you in your eyes. They can't listen to your words. Because everything you say gonna burn. Everything gonna say gonna hurt you. I've only seen the memes of Color Purple. I've never seen Color Purple. I'm gonna pay for that later. Everything gonna burn them. Because you're ether. Now you're in the ethers. See, I live in the ethers. So everything I say is supposed to burn. I had to adjust myself to that. But I desire you to be the fucking best. Remember these three things. These three golden rules to the triangle of the trifecta of your life. Healing is destructive. You are deserving and you're not, but you're not entitled. The level of work that you will have to do, the level of work that you are doing is to remove the scales of entitlement and the scales of expectation. It's time to see your own worth. I love you. We love us. Ashe.